Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Vino Frankel, Taste of Sculpterra. I am your host, Paul Frankel. Excited to be here once again for our 6th episode of our Sculpterra weekly podcast. And once again, I have a fantastic co-host, Darren Brown is back.
Hello, hello.
Actually, the podcast we did with Darren was the second podcast, and that's the most viewed podcast. So he did a good job. So he's back for more. I invited him back. So Darren, as I mentioned if you haven't seen that episode with him, mentioned that he's our assistant tasting room manager, works at Sculpterra. He's in charge of wine education and does a whole bunch of stuff. Does everything from tasting wine, the wine list, the wine notes, library wines, the event organizing, our staff. We have a lot of staff, so it takes a lot of energy to put everyone in at the right bars and reservations. He also, as I said, he does wine education, and on November 1st, he's hosting his first class at Sculpterra, which you can buy tickets to that on Talk through our website. Did you want to talk about that, Darren? Just explain what's going on?
Sure, yeah. Really small event. It's in the second gazebo, so we have quite literally 12 chairs available. Book it online through Talk. It's $40 a person. We're giving additional discounts on wines for those taking part. So that could be 30% for non-club members, 50% for our wine club members. And we'll go over the basics of it's loosely based on the Wine and Spirits Education Trust tasting method. So by the time we're done, we'll know how to look at wine's appearance and describe how it tastes and give an overall opinion on it. Should be good fun. It's pretty much entry level. So if you're keen to know how to get the best out of wine, then book it up on our Talk page.
And you've got it set up to do whites, medium-bodied reds, heavy reds, a little bit of everything?
Yeah, bit of everything. So, light-bodied white wine, mostly dry reds, and then we'll do a deliberately sweet wine at the end as well. So, 7 wines in all to try. Quite a broad selection.
Yeah, that's great. And everyone has their own palate. By palate, I mean your own liking of how you taste wines, right? Some people like sweet wines, dry wines, heavy, medium bodied. So this is a great chance for you to learn what your palate tells you. If you're new to wine or haven't tasted a lot of wines, it takes a long time to develop a palate. You just have to taste and taste and taste to really fine tune wines that you like. And then when you get really good at it, you'll say, I like Cabernet from Paso. I like Pinot Noir from Santa Barbara and Cab Franc from Napa. I mean, you start to kind of hone in on what areas do the grapes that your palate likes. But in Paso, we grow everything. We grow lots of grapes. So this is going to be a lot of fun. So come on out and experience this and get educated on wine. Because we have Darren here, we have our section to nerd out on wine, which is very fun. So we're going to go into Zinfandel and Primitivo a lot today. Primitivo is what we grow on our property. We had Zinfandel that we planted back in 1993, 94. We ripped it out and planted Viognier in its place. The Zinfandel was just old, tired. We didn't need it, and we planted Primitivo in place of Zinfandel on another block of our property. Primitivo and Zinfandel are genetically similar, and they're so similar you can call Primitivo Zinfandel. So we're going to get into this and talk about it. And the 2025 harvest of Primitivo was spectacular. I don't think it's ever looked this good. Just the quality of the grapes, the smells during fermentation, how well it pressed and racked into barrels. It just really impressed me. And I made 3 separate lots. I'm going to go through each of those lots and talk about how I made it, how it turned out. And those wines we're going to bottle in August of 2026. So this show is going to feature Primitivo. At the end, we're going to taste our Arroway Primitivo. This is our alternate wine label in honor of the workers. And we have our Sculpterra Primitivo, which has got our sculpture, our 6-ton cat made by John Jagger. So we have 2 Primitivos to taste, and then we've got a Figurine blend. Figurine is a blend of Primitivo, Cabernet, and Merlot. This is 2022. Right now, the current vintage of the tasting room is 2020, which we're almost sold out of. It's getting low. And then we have 2021, which was in the wine club shipments. 2022 was in some wine club shipments this year, and it's tasting phenomenal. I tried it a couple weeks ago at a friend's party, and I hadn't had it in a long time, and it blew me away just how it's coming together. Primitivo, Cab, and Merlot. So we're going to taste 3 wines at the end today. All right. Well, I wanted to update everybody with harvest. I know it's we're still picking grapes. I've got the shirt on. We're still going. Got the harvest uniform. Yeah, it's just been a very long harvest. We started August 29th, and we should be done next week. We plan on finishing next Wednesday, which will be November 5th. But we're picking tomorrow. So you're going to watch this episode Friday. But we're picking tomorrow, which will be October 29th. And we're picking the Bentley Ironworks cab, the Hilltop cab, and our next door neighbor, Dr. Kong. I'm going to make 12 tons of cab for him this year too, which will be fun, different, and exciting. Cab's been hard to make bricks. Bricks is how sweet the grapes get. And just because that rain event we had October 13th really just slowed everything down. It looked like the harvest was going to end early. My early bricks reporting and blog posts and that sort of thing, I thought, wow, it looks like most of the grapes are going to come in September. Maybe it'll spill over to October a little bit. But that rain, not only did it rain, but it brought cold weather. It was an Alaskan a cold front and rain that came down. And after that, I mean, it's just been cooler and cooler. And so our Cabernet has struggled to get ripe. But, like, for example, the Bentley Ironworks Cabernet, I test it weekly. It was 23 bricks, 24 bricks, 24 bricks the next week, 24 bricks. It was 24 bricks for 3 weeks in a row. This week, yesterday, I checked it, it was 26. So I'm thrilled because it's going to make great wine. And the vineyard has that look. It's hard to describe, but the vineyard, the leaves are turning yellow, and the vines are at that time when they're going dormant, starting to turn off and shut down for the season. So it's time to pick, but I'm really happy that it made it to 26 bricks. The Hilltop Cab was 25 bricks. Dr. Kong's Vineyard on Chaparral was 24 and a half. So those are going to work out well. And we're going to be making some cabs starting, we're picking tomorrow. We'll crush them on early morning Thursday. So we're going to be making cab. So yeah, this harvest, like I said, very long, very stretched out. Kind of feels like a bunch of small harvests within one large harvest. So moving on, we're making cab this week, next week, and then we'll be done with the 2025 season. So, yep, I do a bricks report, which is on our Facebook page. So please go to our Facebook page and you'll read all about that, what I'm just talking about right now, how we go through the vineyard, check grapes, do bucket samples, and I'm analyzing and deciding when we're going to pick. It's a lot of decision making when you're making wine, and I get to make that last call, the final decision of when we're going to pick. So there we go. The harvest is up to Cabernet, and we'll be done by next week. All right. Anything to add over there, Darren, about the harvest?
I think it's fascinating. You think where we are on the world map, the latitude of Paso, we're all on the lines of Tunisia. So you'd think it would be crazy hot here. But there are years like this where, we're heading towards the end of October and we've still got grapes on the vine. It's crazy to think. But yeah, that cool down we get overnight is huge. And it's why Paso is getting such a reputation for wines. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and then on Saturday, Sunday, Monday morning, we had a lot of fog, like really thick, wet fog, and the vines are wet. Even just walking through the vineyard, you get soaked. This morning and the next mornings that are coming, we don't have fog in the forecast, so that's going to help out. But yeah, just like Darren said, it's every harvest is different. We typically have the dependable summer in California, which really separates us from the rest of the world, where we know it's going to be hot. We know the grapes are going to get ripe, but it doesn't always happen. This year we had a cooler summer. We had some heat spikes that popped up certain times, but it's really just been a cooler September, October. But the good news is the Cabernet looks really good. There's not rot, mildew, botrytis. There's no disease pressure. We're just waiting for them to get a little riper, We haven't irrigated our Cabernet in a month now, which is pretty crazy. But I'm excited to be making Cabernet once again. All right, I wanted to focus on Primitivo, as I mentioned. I made 3 lots of Primitivo in 2025. And what's kind of funny is, a lot of wineries, most wineries, I should say, they name their different lots of wine. They'll just have lot 1, lot 2, lot 3, where I give them a fun name because I think when you name something, it brings you back to that moment when you picked or something that happened that day. It makes it more real, more authentic and genuine. So we had aguacero in Spanish, which means a downpour. So the first pick of Primitivo was right after we had a downpour of rain, which this was really strange too, because you think after a rain, the bricks are going to drop, vines soak up water and it loses sugar content, but it didn't in the Primitivo. So the first lot, which we picked 8.1 tons of Primitivo Aguacero, was picked at 27 bricks. And this was another interesting story. We kept sampling the Primitivo and we were getting 24 to 25 bricks basically every week. And then all of a sudden, boom, it was 27 bricks. So we picked 8.1 tons and it came in at 27 bricks. So it came in just as it was being sampled, which means our samples were accurate. So because, this was my test lot of Primitivo, and because it came in that ripe, I decided to keep picking it. So that was picked on September 26th. Then that was on a Friday. We followed up on Monday, the 29th of September, and picked 7.7 tons. The first lot came out at 16.2% alcohol, and the second lot was 16.3% alcohol. And then the third lot, which was picked on October 1st, so that was a week after the first lot, that was 15.3% alcohol. So typically, the longer you wait, the sweeter the grapes get, the higher the alcohol that's produced. But in our case with the Primitivo, it really depends what part of the block you're harvesting from. If you're starting on the highest elevated rows that tend to be more sweeter, you'll get higher bricks, more alcohol content. And then on the lower section of the block, which it sees a lot more shade, those grapes don't get as sweet as the hilltop, as the same section, but on a different part of the vineyard. So just picking later doesn't necessarily mean the grapes are that much sweeter. So, but all in all, we had a 16.2% lot, 16.3 and 15.3. And the last lot I did punch-on fermentation. So we had 8 punch-on wine barrels. So you've seen this, Darren, how we take the heads off barrels and ferment half a ton in each barrel. Now that's super special. In fact, I made a video earlier this week about punch-on fermentation. So that's going to be on the YouTube channel. I'm thinking next week we could react to that because it looks really great and it's a fun process to do. So all in all, we made 24 tons of Primitivo in 2025, and got to be one of the better years. Yeast too. I wanted to mention this, that I've learned over the years which yeast to use with Primitivo. The main thing is not to get the fermentation stuck. You want a yeast that will complete fermentation, eat all the sugar before the yeast die. It's really interesting how yeast do their job, and then they're intolerant of alcohol and they die at the end of fermentation. But you don't want them to die before they complete their job, which is to consume all the sugar. In doing that, they create alcohol. Carbon dioxide is a byproduct of fermentation as well. But I've discovered premium Zin yeast, which is a really old school yeast, which does the trick. And then 3001, which is a Pinot Noir yeast that was derived for hot climates. I tried that years ago on Primitivo, and it is a fantastic yeast. So I use those two yeasts, 3001 and Premium Zin. That's my secret of Primitivo. All right, so speaking of Primitivo, I think this is a good time to move on to a little history of Zinfandel Primitivo, how the grape came into the Americas, and I'll pass it over to Darren. He's going to go through the timeline a bit here.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, at least from a US perspective, everybody likes to sort of focus on Zinfandel. So that's where we start. Back in the 1820s, Zinfandel was originally brought over to the US from an Austrian nursery. It had a number of synonyms at the time: Zinfandel, Zinfardel, lots of similar names. Nobody really knows where that name came from. I suspect from the nursery in Austria. But it was grown on the East Coast as a table grape in hot houses at first, really popular because it got super sweet. In the 1850s, the gold rush, it seemed everybody wanted to be on the other coast. So some of these growers brought Zinfandel cuttings with them, and it was introduced to California. It started to become popular as a wine grape in the late 1800s. But of course, Prohibition kind of slowed things down. By the time Prohibition had ended, mostly people had forgotten where Zinfandel had come from. Scroll forward to the 1960s. Super coincidence here. We have a great pathologist from UC Davis who's traveling Italy, gets served a wine he thinks is Zinfandel. Turns out it's Primitivo. He finds the winery, gets cuttings, takes them back to California for research. And then it wasn't really until the 1990s that UC Davis confirmed through DNA testing that Primitivo and Zinfandel are essentially, they have a common ancestor, so which is the old Pribodrug, Cielianak Kasztelanski. Sorry to the Croatians if I pronounced that wrong, but I had to find a YouTube video to figure out how to say that. So those are some of the older names for it over in Croatia. And it's gone, you think if it goes north through Slovenia, it'll find its way to Austria. South across the ocean there over to Italy, and that's where it's found as Primitivo in the Puglia region. Manduria, there's an awesome region for it there. Red clay soils, warm climate, does particularly well out there. So definitely worth picking up a Puglian Primitivo and trying it. Because the styles vary hugely. The vines we have at Sculpterra, I gather, were grown from cuttings that UC Davis brought over in the 90s. So we know it's Primitivo as opposed to Zinfandel. I tend to think of them as twins separated at birth. I think you got, 200 years of separation. So they've developed little differences. Primitivo has smaller grapes and... but yeah, I guess we've grown them both on the property. So did you notice a difference with how they grow between the two in the vineyard here?
Yeah, just like you said a second ago, Darren. Yeah, I noticed that Primitivo has looser clusters. It has more, they call it chicks and hens, when you have a lot of shatter. So that's when the flower doesn't set berry. It doesn't get fertilized. So you'll have a cluster with loose berries. You'll have a berry here and a berry here, and you'll have empty space in the cluster, which is good because Zinfandel and Primitivo is prone to rot, where the berries are so tight and they grow into each other. If it gets rained, if it gets nudged, they can burst and break the berries, and then rot can occur. So Primitivo is known for chicks and hens with looser clusters, which is a benefit because there's less chance of rot happening, where Zinfandel has tight clusters, big clusters, and both are prolific grape varieties because they can produce a lot of fruit. I mean, you can farm it for 3 tons an acre. You can farm it for 8 tons an acre. It produces a lot of secondaries. So you have your first cluster on your shoot, and then you have your secondary cluster. Well, Zinfandel and Primitivo, you'll see, will have 3rd and 4th and 5th clusters, really small, undeveloped, immature clusters those never get ripe. So we don't even tend to harvest those clusters. But yeah, I think Primitivo is superior over Zinfandel in the growing aspects because it's looser clusters, less prone to rot. And I think I had heard that Primitivo, that the name in Primavera, which is spring in Spanish and Italian, I know it's like it's supposed to ripen earlier. That's how Primitivo got that name.
Yeah. So it was a monk in the 1700s that gave it the name Primitivo, from primitivus or early. I gather before that it could well have been called Zagoreze, which is kind of a link to Croatia, because where it came from. But yeah, the suggestion is that it's an early ripener, but it's certainly not the first grape we're bringing in at Sculpterra by a long way.
Well, it depends. It can be, because we always pick Pinot Noir is always the first of the reds, but then Primitivo should be the next one up. But depends on the crop load. If it's got this year we only had 3.5 tons per acre, which is why we picked it in September. But yeah, if we're hanging 5 tons an acre, it'll take a couple more weeks to get ripe. Mid-October, and then with the weather, if it's a cooler year, it'll take its time to get ripe.
Right.
But also, Primitivo are just the best tasting grapes. If you were just walking through the vineyard and you're tasting Cabernet and Syrah and Merlot, Mourvedre, Primitivo, we go through and taste the grapes. And Primitivo, I think it's the acidity. It's got low pH, high TA, good tart taste, and it's sweet, and it's a lot of flesh to it. It's a fleshy grape, so not a real thick skin grape, but more pulp and flesh. So it tastes like a really great table grape, just incredibly good tasting. So we're out there, and while we're picking, we eat the grapes. But Cabernet, for instance, if you eat Cabernet, Cabernet will have 2 to 3 seeds per grape. I think Primitivo typically just has 1. So Cabernet has a lot of seeds, thick skin, not much juice to it, and it's got that tannic, bitter, astringent taste in the grape, where Primitivo doesn't really have tannins per se. It's just more on the acidic, tart tasting sweet grapes. But when you eat a cab grape and you chew the skins and keep it on the side of your mouth, you can taste the astringency of Cabernet. Primitivo doesn't have that. So I mentioned a couple shows ago about herbaceousness and methoxypyrazines and pyrazines, and Primitivo never tastes green, I would say. Like if you pick Primitivo early, it'll produce a lower alcohol wine, maybe light in color, less mouthfeel and structure and body, but it won't taste green. It won't have those green herbaceous tastes. If you pick Cab low bricks too early, before it's physiologically ripe, it tastes green. So you don't have to worry about that with Primitivo. With Primitivo, we worry about picking it overripe. So like I said, our first lot came in at 27 bricks. That's high. That equated to 16+% alcohol. If it goes too far, we pick it at 28, 29 bricks. Then it comes out as a dessert wine. Then there's not yeast out there that can ferment all that sugar, and you end up with a wine that's a little sweet, which is good for late harvest. But we're trying to make a dry Primitivo.
So yeah. I've heard it's prone to uneven ripening. What does that look like? Is there different clusters with different ripenesses, or all just within one cluster you get kind of overripe and underripe?
No, I think it's different clusters on the same vine. Yeah, I've seen that more with Zinfandel and less with Primitivo. So again, I think that's a superior trait that Primitivo has over Zinfandel. I know with Zinfandel vineyards here in Paso and other places that the grape growers will go through and drop a lot of fruit. So they'll drop the secondaries. They'll anything that's still green, didn't go through veraison, didn't turn from green to purple. But Primitivo is very uniform through it. It'll produce those 3rd and 4th and 5th clusters, but the primary cluster and the secondary cluster, they're always really uniform. But there are differences within the block, because our Primitivo is on a really steep 8-acre vineyard. It has to be hand-picked because it's so steep. So depending where you are in the block will determine how ripe the grapes are. Primitivo. But Zinfandel and Paso, Zinfandel is like, I guess you would say, is our heritage grape. Did you want to mention that, Darren, about Paderewski a bit?
Yeah, so the first Zinfandel vines were brought into Paso in the mid-1880s, I think. But it was in the 1920s, Ignacy Paderewski planted Zinfandel over on the west side of where the 101 is now. And York Mountain made a wine with his fruit in the 30s that got critical acclaim, won awards at the state fair and that kind of stuff. So it's crazy to think that we have, a Polish pianist, politician to thank for putting Paso on the map. I think it's Turley maybe these days that has access to those older vines. But yeah, it was one of the first kind of commercially recognized wines of Paso was Zinfandel. And of course we've got great conditions for it out here.
Yeah, we used to have, and we still celebrate it in March every year. The Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance started Zinfest weekend, which was always the third Saturday in March. And we do something similar, but we do Primitivo, and we'll do library Primitivos, multiple vintages, the Arroway versus our Sculpterra, the Primitivo blend. So that's fun. That's fun because you get to try wine from the same blocks, but different years and taste the differences. Oak barrels too. I mean, this has been going on for 100 years where American oak and Zinfandel, that's like a match made in heaven. Higher alcohol wines tend to do better in new oak. I think the new oak can mask some of the effects of a higher alcohol wine. And you get Zinfandel or Primitivo, which has a lot of fruit to it. Again, it doesn't come out green. You get raisin tastes and plum and berries and blackberry and a lot of cherry flavors come through with Primitivo and Zinfandel. And then you pair that with new American oak, which is the most aggressive of the oak species. And you get, grilled and chocolate and barbecue flavors paired with all that fruit. It's just wonderful. So American oak, American oak is used mostly with Primitivo and Zinfandel, and Syrah. That's another one that you see most American oak, where French oak is typically used for Cabernet Franc, Merlot. Hungarian oak is a good choice for Primitivo. I do a combination of mostly American, but some Hungarian, which gives you more structure in the wine, where American oak gives you all that toast. Hungarian and French are more mouthfeel related, more structure, more tannins, more for the long-term aging. And Primitivo, I'm a big proponent on bottling it young. So we just barrel age it for 8 to 10 months in barrel, which for American oak, that's all the time that you need for the wine to absorb the toast and the effects of the wood. So there are wineries in California that'll have their Zinfandel aged for 24 months, 36 months in barrel. I don't think that's necessary because, again, the primary focus of Zinfandel and Primitivo is the fruit characteristic. The longer you wait to bottle, the more those fruit flavors oxidize and disappear. So bottling it young, you capture it. We bottle our Primitivos in a screw cap finish. Easy, pop and pour. Fun way to do it. You don't have to bother with a wine opener. So we bottle it young and capture it at that really beautiful fruit-focused part of the stage. So we were talking about Zinfandel being the heritage grape in Paso. I think Paso really moved from Zinfandel country to the Bordeaux's became real popular, especially here on the east side. And then Rhone varietals. So those of you who don't know, Rhone varietals are Syrah, Grenache, Mourvedre. Petite Syrah, is that a Rhone varietal, Darren?
No.
We talked about Petite Syrah before. We consider it Rhone, but the French don't consider it Rhone.
Yeah, the Rhone Rangers, I believe they accept it, but Yeah, it comes from the other side of the hills from the Rhone Valley, so the French don't consider it a Rhone grape. You could get in trouble with the law if you put de Riff or Petit Syrah in a Rhone wine and label it Rhone.
Did we miss anything with the Primitivo Zinfandel history lesson?
Yeah, so I mean, so you make what, 3 Primitivo wines plus the Figurine blend. How do you kind of define the difference? And what is your favorite, you think, of the Primitivo wines, and what are the differences?
Yeah, it's fun. Every year I make multiple lots. Like this year I made 3 separate lots, and I taste them, and I use different oak barrels, different yeast, go through the whole process. The Arroway Primitivo, I try to make that one the most ready to drink, the most, just upfront, easy flavors, and, not something that takes a lot of time for aging. I do something a little unique with the Arroway Primitivo. I put a little bit of Cab Franc and Petit Syrah into it. It adds complexity and changes the structure around a bit. Our Sculpterra Primitivo, the last few years, I've just done 100% Primitivo. And I usually use the higher alcohol lots. So this is a more serious wine with, a bigger ending to it. But both are great. I mean, I can't go wrong when I blend any of the Primitivo lots. There's lots of possibilities, but they're all great. So Arroway and Sculpterra, and then our Figurine blend, which this was kind of a happy accident where back when I was making wine at Malloy O'Neill Winery, we had too much Primitivo, we had too much Cab. I didn't want to bottle so much Cab on its own and Primitivo on its own, so we said, well, why don't we blend some of it together? Why not? So we made a blend of Primitivo and Cab, and it was great because the fruitiness of Primitivo and then the structural herbaceous element of Cabernet, those kind of counteract each other, and you get both at the same time. It was just a great blend. Works out really well. So our Figurine blend, typically I've been using the Old Well Cab and the Hilltop Cab. So those are 2 different tasting blocks altogether. The Hilltop Cab, much more fruit driven. The Old Well Cab being down by the creek in a colder area, more of the herbal, herbaceous qualities. So I like doing kind of the yin and yang to combine them together. And then the Primitivo in the blend, again, I choose maybe like some of the early lot and then maybe most of the last lot. Just very complex. That's a complex blend. We're going to taste it at the end, and we'll describe what we're tasting. But I love making Primitivo. I always have, and it's a great vineyard too. I mean, just walking through the vineyard and seeing it. And I've sold some of the fruit. There's a few home winemakers and smaller wineries that have purchased the fruit, and they love it, and they've won lots of awards with it. And we do great with it with Primitivo. And we could call it Zinfandel. I remember when we opened the tasting room. We opened the tasting room in 2008. But we had the option of labeling Primitivo, calling it Zinfandel. But I wanted to call it like it is, Primitivo. I think that's the actual grape that we have, and it's distinctively different from Zinfandel. But people who know the history know that they are similar but different. So what Darren described, that they were twins separated at birth. That's a good way to think of it. There's also head trained Zinfandel here in Paso on the west side and even on the east side. Some of these older vines, they're non-irrigated, and they grow up in a goblet form. They're not on a trellis with stakes and wire. And those grapes ripen really early. They usually pick those in August, beginning of September. So, which is great for Zinfandel. It's kind of like the earlier you pick it, the less chances you have of it getting rained on and having the birds eat it, having other things happen. But Zinfandel and Primitivo. I mean, if you're coming to Paso and you haven't had Zinfandel or Primitivo in this area, you really need to taste it. It's a great experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's great that Zinfandel really gained popularity through white Zin. And there's a lot of kind of misconception with some people that Zinfandel is pink and it's not a serious wine, but I think it makes a great wine. I really appreciate what we do with it.
Okay, moving on to the world of wine. This is a section where I talk about something happening in the grand scheme of the wine world. Recently, I read an article. It was a winemaker talking about how he thinks that the ingredients of wine should be on the label, because he doesn't do anything manipulating to the wine, doesn't add anything, doesn't add yeast or whatever. He wants on his label, he just puts ingredients, grapes. And he feels that if more people saw the ingredients on a wine label, they would be more excited by it and purchase it, because when you buy a bottle of wine, it says California, Paso Robles, Zinfandel, but you don't know the whole story. On our wines, I list out the straight points of from this block, this vineyard, picked on this date, aged in these oak barrels. So try to give you the straight facts of the information. But how do you feel about that, Darren? Do you think the ingredients of wine should be on the wine label?
No, really. I'm all for having the varieties on blends, because that's one of those things, people get confused about European wine labeling, but once you know the rules, often, because a lot of regions they don't bottle wine by the varietal, it's by the region, and you're just supposed to know what that region grows. But once you know what the rules are, you know what you're buying. But of course, California red blend is such a meaningless thing to put on a bottle of wine. It tells you nothing about the style of wine. So I think it's great the Sculpterra wines have the percentages of the varieties in them, and the barrels used, the picking dates. They all can help give you a picture of what kind of wine that is. Ingredients labels...
It's strange.
I don't know. Yeah, because most people don't know what. It's not like you can put, a potassium sorbate or whatever. I guess potassium metabolized sulfite. You could put that on there, but most people are scared by those terms. They don't know what it is. I guess for those in the know, it could be kind of useful, but it's not like. You look at the ingredients for most food items in the stores, and there's all kinds of stuff we don't recognize, but people are happy to buy it. So
that's true.
But yeah, wine of all things out there is so minimal with the ingredients list. I'm not sure how useful, realistic that would kind of be.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, again, one reason I started this podcast, I've mentioned it a lot, is, young people. We really think that, it's this young people's turn. It's the what's the generation we're up to? We had X, we had the millennials, what are all the new generations? I know there's different ones
all these
now.
labels now. I don't remember this. I'm so old, I haven't got a label. I don't think.
But I think younger people want to know what's inside the ingredients. But again, once you get into wine and learn about wine and see the winemaking process, that's why we want to do videos of picking grapes and crushing and fermenting and barreling and pressing and bottling, and you see the process. You see we're not pulling any tricks on anybody or doing anything strange. It's been, wine's been made for thousands of years. And it's good for you. It's good for you, yes. Good for your heart. Okay, we're going to move on to the event calendar, which we had our Harvest Fiesta a couple weeks ago now. Our next event are the Open House Wine Club parties, which are November 8th and 9th. It looks like we're going to have 150 people each day. So these are in the daytime from 12 to 3:30 at Sculpterra. We're going to be releasing our new Cabernet, 2023 Cab, 2022 Maquette. So really great wines, and should be a lot of fun. And then speaking of Primitivo, in January, this is a new event at Manny's Pizza. Manny's Pizza, which is in San Miguel. I'm doing a winemaker dinner at his place, and we've gone over the menu. He's got a shrimp and chorizo pizza that we're pairing with Mega Focus, which is our Rhone blend, and he's got a meat lovers pizza we're going to do with our Cab Reserve. So we did this event last last January, and I'm going to try to get Manny on this podcast. He's an incredible chef. He's owned restaurants in Cambria, and now he's got Manny's Pizza in San Miguel, and they sell our Primitivo. So we're talking about Primitivo. Primitivo and pizza are a wonderful pairing together. So that's coming up on Thursday, January 15th. It's $50 a ticket for club members and $60 for non-members. It's a great deal. You get a lot of food. There's going to be a salad at the beginning, a flan, a dessert at the end, and then you get 3 pizzas in between that paired with wine. And I come up and talk about why these particular pizzas are paired well with these wines that I brought. So a lot of fun, different, great event. So that's happening in January. Then before that, we've got our Christmas event, which is Thursday, 18th. My wife's been practicing now with the kids. They have a singing teacher that's meeting with them every Monday. Linda Wilson, who is she does lots of singing in this area, and she's an incredible teacher, especially with young people. So they're learning proper technique, and they're going to sing quite a few Christmas songs and act out the nativity and the birth of Christ. My wife and son are going to be on this podcast in December. They're going to talk more about it and all the hard work that they're putting into that. We've got 2 food trucks coming on that night. We'll have all the Christmas lights up at that point, so it's going to be very fun. So that's December 18th. So, okay, well, events. Moving to too much information, Darren. This is my personal life. What's going on? I like to jog. I like to run. I want to do. I did a 5K a couple years ago, and I got 3rd place in my age category, which I was very proud of. So I run every other day or so around the vineyard. I track my steps on my phone. My dad got me into that. He said, "Oh, Paul, today I've done 20,000 steps." Like, "Oh, what's that?" And then he showed me on the phone. It tracks his steps. And like, that's cool. So I like numbers. I like looking at that. So the Harvest Festival Saturday, October 18th, I did 32,700 steps, which is 15 miles of walking just for the Harvest Fiesta. But typically I do about 23,000 steps a day, a lot of walking. I love to stay active. I like to run. And as I've gotten older, I really just helps my mind, helps me clear everything out and focus on what I'm doing, and just great to have that exercise. So running, one of the activities I do. Do you like to run, Darren? You like to hike?
Yeah, I prefer hiking, maybe a bit of cycling. I would run if I was being chased by, like, I don't know, a mountain lion or something, which...
Good segue.
But, yeah, avoid running otherwise.
Speaking of mountain lions, yeah, we do animals in the vineyard. Okay, animals in the vineyard at Sculpterra. We do our animal sound here, so ooh, ah. Meow, row.
The noise that mountain lions make, it's like a chirp, isn't it?
Yeah.
When I'm closing the gate when it's dark, I'm always listening out for that.
Yeah, animals in the vineyard. I wanted to talk about our cats. Those of you that come to our tasting room, you've seen we have cats that live at the tasting room. At one point, we had 9 black cats we had one mother cat. She wasn't fixed, so she gave birth to a litter of cats, and then we tried to catch the cats and spay and neuter the cats, bring them back. This went on for years. Now we're down to just a few cats, but at one point we had 9 black cats, and I remember we had a couple of customers would come into the tasting room and they would tell me, "Do you know you have 9 black cats?" Like, they think it's like something scary and evil and bad luck or karma or whatever, but we don't believe in that. But we take care of the cats. We had a cat that needed help from the vet, and because it ate too much mice, Darren?
Yeah, that was Pie. She didn't need an operation, and apparently her stomach was full of all kinds of bones from mice and other things she found. So yeah, we had her operated on, She lived for a little while longer with Chris, our event coordinator. She's also a animal rescue facility in her own right, I think. So she gave her the best life. She's passed away fairly recently, but had a great time for that limited period afterwards. But yeah, we look after her best we can out there.
Yeah, the cats are great because they eat mice and gophers and squirrels and rabbits. I've the cat that lives with me at the winery, she's ate a rabbit. She's caught a rabbit. And the rabbit's like almost as big as her. But cats are amazing, and we take care of them at the tasting room. My nerd out on wine section this week, I wanted to share a short story of a guy named Dominic. Dominic from Scott's Labs. Scott's Labs is the manufacturing company where I buy yeast and other winemaking products. And Dominic, who's the lead researcher from Italy, he just walked into our tasting room one day and he was showing me some new products that they're offering and research that he had done. And I told him about Primitivo, how I struggled with Primitivo. I was getting stuck. The fermentation wasn't completing to all the way. And he looked at me and he said, it's temperature. He said, you have to ferment at cooler temperatures. And back then I didn't have temperature control. We were making wine in bins, not in tanks, hooked up to a glycol chiller. So that was during the time where we were transitioning from our small micro winery to making more wine on a bigger scale. So I took his advice and started to ferment Primitivo at like 65 to 75 degrees max instead of, say, Cabernet, which can go, we ferment it up to 90 degrees or 85, 88 degrees. Primitivo, Zinfandel, it needs to be fermented cold. Just slow and steady wins the race. And he was right. And then he told me about 3001 yeast. And then there's certain yeast food, because yeast are eating sugar, but they also need nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, micronutrients. So you can supplement the fermentation by adding yeast nutrient food. And there's some specialty foods that he told me about that you need to feed the yeast at certain times during fermentation. That combined with fermenting it cold, that was the key. And once I did what he was suggesting, I haven't had Primitivo stuck fermentations anymore. So it's just thank you, Dominic. You just showed up at the tasting room. He's the lead researcher for Scott's Labs, lives in Italy, where they've done all this research. So really fascinating, that we're still learning more and more about yeast viability and how they grow exponentially and when they need what food at what point of the fermentation. It's very fascinating stuff. Indeed. Okay, let's do some questions and then we'll taste some wine. What do you got for me, Darren?
Okay, we got this. So, yeah, we talk about animals in a vineyard. And I know, of course, Abraham here is all about the animal husbandry here. Are there any plans to kind of combine the two and have animals working in the vineyard for you?
Yes, I would say yes. Yeah, we have over 30 goats now. We have more that are pregnant and more goats on the way. So yes, we'd like to bring the goats through the vineyard in the off season, in the winter when the vines are going dormant. If you put them in during spring and summer, they'll eat the leaves, they'll eat the buds, they'll eat the grapes. But once the vines are dormant, they won't be interested in the vines anymore, and they're all the grass growing underneath and the weeds, and then they go to the bathroom, natural fertilizer, we disc that in. So yeah, we'd like to do goats. You mentioned my son Abraham. He's so attached to the goats. He doesn't want to have them out of his sight. He's a little concerned if they're out in the vineyard, they can get attacked by a coyote or a mountain lion. We could put them out and then every day round them up and bring them back in. We could put up temporary fencing around the vineyards and to keep them in, but that would be a good benefit because we do a lot of weeding, a lot of hand hoeing and disking and scraping and weed management. So yeah, I'm all for that. Let's put the goats in the vineyard and take care of the weeds.
Yeah, help the soil in the process. Great. So yeah, and what are the plans for the YouTube channel now that YouTube stardom awaits? It's gaining popularity, but what do we think going forward? What's going to happen?
Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, Miguel, who's behind here doing the recording, Paso Podcast Studios. Thank you, Miguel, for doing this. Yeah, I think consistency, staying with this every week, bringing you a new episode, that's important. And then making short videos too, more of production. Years ago, I did lots of videos on every part of the grape growing and winemaking process. I'm going to bring those back, record new videos, and make wine fun. I mean, I have a lot of fun all day long when I'm working, whatever process I'm doing, and I want you to experience that. I want everyone watching this to get a feel of what it's like as a life as a winemaker, and all the parts of my day that I'm doing and trying different things and working hard. So there'll be other videos coming out about other parts of winemaking that we do.
Sure. Yeah, if you want to see Paul with long hair, you got to watch some of those older videos back on the YouTube channel. Yeah, glorious locks back then.
Very true. Okay, that's it for the questions. We're doing good?
I think so, yeah.
All right, well, let's taste some wine. We're going to try 3 wines. Start with the Arroway Primitivo. Now, these, the Arroway Primitivo, Sculpterra Primitivo are 2023. So the Arroway Primitivo 23, this is coming out November 1st in the Arroway Wine Club shipment. We have a lot of Arroway Wine Club members, but they haven't tasted this one yet. So Darren and I are going to taste it. Okay, just scooch this here.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, there we go.
I was impressed how light and vibrant the Primitivo wines here. You often see Zinfandel's like opaque, but yeah, beautiful color to it.
Yeah, that's one thing I didn't mention. We were going through the differences of Primitivo and Zinfandel. I think Zinfandel typically is a darker wine than Primitivo. Slightly darker, but Primitivo has a very nice color to it. So the Arroway Primitivo is 87% Primitivo, 9% Cabernet Franc, and 4% Petit Syrah. So I add a little something special to it with Petit Syrah and Cabernet Franc.
Yeah, my personal favorite of the Arroway wines. I think it's it's super complex.
Yeah, this is 2023, which 2023 is going to go down as an amazing vintage in Paso. If you're tasting wine and they're pouring 23s from Paso Robles, buy those, taste those. It was a great vintage, 23 Arroway Primitivo. Yeah, this is
Great intensity.
Yeah, this is like the moment where I enjoy this wine because it's got multiple things happening all at once. It hasn't lost its youthful fruit, and it's got that young mouthfeel, and you can feel the Petit Syrah and Cabernet Franc on the finish and on the sides. It just wow, really great blend.
Still taste it. Nice long finish. Love it.
This wine too, I use World Cooperage American Oak barrels. I do Profile 107 and Profile 61. These Coopers have been making barrels for so many years. They've even isolated different toasting profiles.
That's nuts.
And with Zinfandel, I was recommended to try Profile 107 and 61, and they're both great, but I blend them together when I'm making this wine. So this was 28% new American oak. So it's actually a blend of 2 lots of Primitivo, a barrel of Cab Franc, and a barrel of Petit Syrah, 2023. Wow. All right, moving on to our Sculpterra Primitivo. So we're sticking with the 2023 year. This is a blend of different lots of Primitivo. Alrighty, do first here. Okay, yeah. So this one's 100% Primitivo. So maybe the color is a touch lighter than the Arroway, considering the Cab Franc and Petit Syrah kind of beefed it up a bit. But this one has 3 lots of Primitivo. So it's got my early, middle, and late pick combined together. And it's 48% new oak. So this wine is almost twice the new oak that the Arroway Primitivo had. And yeah, I could definitely smell more oak influence on this wine than I did with the Arroway. And yeah, they're about the same percent alcohol. They're both about 15.6.
Yeah. It doesn't smell like overripe or cooked like some Zinfandel can, though. I think it's some awesome floral stuff, a lot of fruit.
Yeah, again, I think I could talk about yeast and barrels and aging time and pressing and those things, but it starts with the grapes and with the vintage. 2023 was fabulous. I mean, these wines are coming out right now at the tasting room, and they're amazing. 2023 was a fantastic year. We had 28 inches of rain in 2023 and a really great long growing season, and that was a rare year. Very rare for Paso to receive that much rain. Yeah, this one has a different finish. This one finishes a little more on the drying side, or like a tartar quality to it. But man, it's hard to choose one over the other. Both are really solid, great wines.
A little more tannin on the finish, but it's it's velvety. It's not like some tannic wines that are super grippy on the palate. This is that's great.
And the tannins, because Primitivo is not a tannic grape. The tannins that Darren's feeling and I'm feeling is from the barrels. So this has some new AP John American oak, some Trust Hungarian oak, and that's where the tannins and astringency is coming from to help with the structure of the wine. All right, we got one more. Figurine, featuring our mermaid sculpture, which you see at the tasting room. 2022 Figurine.
I always say this is the best lasagna wine.
That's great.
It's like you get those savory fruits like aged cheese, mushroom, tomato. They diminish the fruit flavors in the wine, so you need more fruit in the wine to begin with. Figurine delivers. I think that's great.
So now we're jumping back a year to 2022, and this is 44% Primitivo, 40% Cabernet, and 16% Merlot. So it leads with Primitivo, but not by much. And this has got the Old Well Cab, the Hilltop Cab. It had 1 lot of Primitivo, which was the second pick, so that middle of the road pick, and Merlot. So, but yeah, this there's something about this wine and just how it's tasting right now. I'm just really, really enjoying this a lot. But it's funny, I think I smell more Cabernet coming through than Primitivo, or maybe it's because we just tried Primitivo. Now the Cab really shows itself.
Yeah, and this is one I find Figurine ages really well. You get some like prune plum sauce stuff as it ages in the bottle, if you can be patient enough.
Yeah, this has a lot of jam, a lot of raisin ripe characteristics, but then you get that slight green quality from the Cab, and more bean cherry and kind of like a baked pie quality crust and grilled components. Just a really great wine, really nice, wonderful. Paired with food would be a great treat. Paired with pizza or lasagna, like Darren said. That's a great idea. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, we need to put this back on the tasting menu. This is just really a great wine all around.
Yeah,
when I'm making wines, I want it to hit your palate everywhere: the front, middle, back, the side. Not just have a one-note wine, but have a wine that hits all your senses. Maybe a touch sweet, but yet sour with ripe flavors to combine those two kind of differences there. And then, the elevated alcohol and the oak barrel. So there's a lot to it. There's a a lot going on in this particular wine.
Yeah, and the experts look at the balance, length, intensity, complexity, and this hits all the ticks all the boxes. I think it's one of my favorites here.
I like, Darren, how when we talk about the S, the letter S, the S's of wine, which sight, smell, sip, savor, and then score. That was one of yours, right?
Yeah, I think so. Because and this is one reason I set up this little tasting thing on the 1st of November, is that it's my opinion anybody can form a description on wine and learn a lot about their own taste and the process. But what it comes down in the context of a tasting room is we just want to know what you think. Give it a score out of 10. I've been saying that for years because we know it's a well-made wine. Paul does a great job. Accolades, awards across the board, but we want to know what you think. That's kind of the point of tasting, at least as far as I'm concerned. It's like we want to discover what you think when you come to the tasting room.
That's right. Yes. So come to the tasting room. Come to our class that Darren's doing November 1st. You can get your tickets on Talk. I'll be back next week. So we're excited. We got Cabernet coming in tomorrow. Next week should be the end of the harvest. Maybe I'll be wearing a different shirt. Harvest will be over. We'll see.
I would have hoped you've washed it by then at least.
Yeah, so please, if you haven't done already, please like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell so you're notified when we post a new video. Ask a question. Ask a question as a comment, and we'll read it next time on the air. So thank you for watching and for participating, and we hope to see you soon at the tasting room.
Awesome. Thank you.